Okay, so good morning, everyone. Got a lot of enthusiasm. I'm not really feeling the love today. Let's try that again. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Morning. It's Thursday. It's almost the weekend. Yeah. Right. Oh, I know you're sad because it's like, oh, we're going to lose stats, right? You like having stats on Tuesday because you look forward to today's stats. But today you don't have to look forward all the way to Tuesday. That's way far away, right? So that's what you're sad about. So far, yeah. Okay. So today we're going to do a continuation for what we talked about last class. What did we talk about last class? Elements, yeah. Data analysis. Stuff, things, objects, vocabulary words, something. Yes. No one?
Please Excel and
Yeah, excellent. So we started dipping our hands into Excel, did the A+1, and then you copy and paste it. I can't remember your name. Rebecca. Absolutely right. So we talked elements, so there were like difference between the variable and the observation, and then what you're gathering the information on, which is the element. What is Excel? Exactly. Since we're going to be talking more about Excel today, what is Excel? Tool. Like that.
Spreadsheet.
A spreadsheet. Excellent. Tell me, what's a spreadsheet?
Where you can have information separate rows and pieces.
Yeah, with this assembled in a grid, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at
Absolutely. Name is. I can go. Oh, that won't be confusing. Mustafa, but I can call you Sebastian.
Yes.
Okay. Usually it's the shorter version of the name. You just went totally different, didn't you?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that's what points out it's a spreadsheet program. And it's essentially assembled as a grid, as we talked about, as maybe you probably explored when you did CMAP 120. Again, because it's not required, though, CMAP is not required for the course, we will dive into the details. So let's work with some actual data. And I'm here on my website. So do me a favor and let's go to teaching. And once you go to teaching, you can go right here to BSAD 210. I'm going to ask that you grab data set 0 right here under data sets. No, I put all this on my website. I don't think I upload all the data sets.
What's the name of your website?
dyoungberg.com.
What?
dyoungberg.com. It's on the syllabus as well. Isn't that giving me internet access? What's going on here? Did we lose internet? Okay. Well, this class is going to take a little bit of return. It was working like literally a few minutes ago.
Yeah, well, the internet
Great. Okay, well, no problem. Maybe it'll come back up in a bit. In the meantime, go to your desktop and make a new Excel worksheet. Because we don't need the internet to do some of this stuff. We'll just go to that later.
Yeah.
All right. So, thank you very much. How's that? function up there and decided not to like shut off her internet. We did that with the power last semester. That was funny. All right. So what I've done is I've zoomed way in. Oh, and I'm going to turn off the light too, so we can go. And I'm going to set up some hypothetical information for a hypothetical company. They sell hamburgers, and this is going to be some hypothetical data. So for one, I'm going to select row one. I'm going to select the number 1 because I want all of this to be in bold on the top. It's good for organizational purposes. So I select 1 right here. And then I'm going to hit Control B, or if you want, hit this B button right here, and that'll make everything you type in row 1 bold. Then I'm going to put in item, and price, and option. Wait, no one likes that chair. Oh, that also makes that position better. And sales tax. Then we'll add categories. So let's see, my items are hamburger, cheeseburger, we got a fries, we got hot dogs. And we got soda. And my prices are $3.99, $4.99. I'll do that later. $2.99, $2.49, and $1.19. I'm going to highlight all these, and I'm going to convert it into this. First, your accounting thing. 22, 36, 43, 18, 66. Okay. So I'll give you a moment to catch up. So you have this set up: hamburgers, cheeseburgers, fries, hot dogs, soda, with these prices and these quantities. Is everyone good? It takes a while, I don't know. The sound of people typing. This feels very productive. Now, for those of you who are done, we can take a moment and we can organize this a little bit better, because this kind of irritates me. For example, I can't see all of hamburger and cheeseburger here under column A. How would I fix that? So how would I do that? So there's 2 ways. One is if you get between A and B, you see it changes and gets that vertical line with the arrows on either side, and you can point and drag it backwards. Or you can what? You can auto adjust it too. Well, I just double click and it'll automatically make it as wide as the widest thing. You just double click that space between that vertical line right here between A and B, it'll automatically make it wide. And interestingly enough, if you double click between B and C, it'll automatically shrink it too. It won't go the other way. It sizes things quite nicely. For example, I want to put something in G as well, because I want the text rate to go there. I want it to be in bold off to the side. So I'm going to just manually shrink E. That's why I skipped over E. I'm just going to manually shrink it by grabbing it and dragging it to the left. Oh, and I should probably add a total right here. I'm going to make that bold as well. So,
Professor.
yeah.
Did you use currency or accounting for price?
Oh, it doesn't really matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter. I just hit the dollar sign button. I mean, I think it defaults to accounting, but I always think the accounting one is weird, but it defaults to that, so I was like, okay, whatever. You wanna, it doesn't really make a difference. Any other questions? So, I set this up because I want to know how much sales tax I have to pay for my business. And I want to know based on individual item. Now, one way you can do this is to just figure out how much revenue I got from hamburger and cheeseburger and fries and hot dogs and soda, and then add up that total revenue and then multiply by the tax rate. That's how much I owe. And that would be correct. However, if they add a particular tax that's targeted to just one item, like say sodas, then it would be nice if I had already set up some system where I see the individual taxes for every item. And so that's what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to make a tax rate of 6.5%. And note, even though you can do this in two ways. One, you can put it as 0.065 and then hit the percent button. It'll make it 6.5%. Or you can type in 6.5 and then, press the shift 5. Shift 5, yeah, shift 5 to add that percent there. And then it will automatically convert that cells into a percentage. Obviously, the 6.5% thing is better. It's faster. But no. But make it general, it would be that. It's just a display there. Okay, so what is the sales tax for hamburgers? How would I calculate that? So I have equals, and then do I want to put in 3.99 times 22? Oh yeah, exactly. You don't want to do what I just did. You want to hit B2 times C2 times G1. So as Michael points out, you do want to do the cell references. Why did you want to do the cell references, Michael?
So that if you change the quantity or change the price, or if you can change the tax rate, you do it automatically.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And also, it's another reason why you want to do the cell references. Because I also want to find it for cheeseburger, fries, hot dogs, and soda too, right? So, I can drag it down. But what happens when I drag it down? Yeah. What's your name again? Aziz. Aziz, you're absolutely right. So I get like a bunch of nothing because now it's moved the G1 down to G2 and there's nothing there. So what do? Do I just then make a whole column of 6.5%?
I didn't.
Huh?
I went in.
Oh, you can do that too. That's sort of annoying. I imagine we had like 100 items. You don't do that. Do we know what we do?
I think there's circles.
Oh, yes. What's your name again? So I say that again? Kushkin. What's your last name? So I'm a little stuck up. I can't hear very well. I'm not feeling very well. So Christian. Oh, I see it. Christian Eves? Okay, Christian Eves. Okay. So Christian Eves. Just get to know. sure I'm broadcast. You said the dollar signs?
Yes. Before the G or after the G.
So yeah, you can do it as just typing in the dollar signs right there, or you can hit F4. If you put the cursor next to G or next to 1, as long as it's clear which reference you're referring to, you know, whatever the next, or you can do it between the G and the 1. You can hit F4, and then it'll make an absolute cell reference. So when you copy and paste it, these will update, this will not. Copy and paste it down. I'm sorry, I didn't do this too quick. You can drag it down like we talked about, or you can double click. And it's really great to be able to double click because sometimes you might have like 100 observations you're working with. You don't want to drag it all the way down. If you double click it, Excel knows what you want to do. You want to do the same thing over and over all the way down. And it will stop when it runs out of things to reference. Like, oh, there's nothing there, you probably don't want it there. Like, you're right. Good job, Excel.
How do you do it?
So, you see this green square in the lower right-hand corner of what you highlighted, or what you selected?
Yeah.
If you mouse over that green square, it gets a plus sign.
Okay.
And then you double-click that spot. That's how much all the text we have. So, cell references are pretty fun. Absent cell references are pretty fun. I'm going to show you something else before we move on. Let's say I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to do 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so you can do this if you want. I scroll down a bit just to make a little grid. I'm going to do this plus this. So B10 plus A11. Now, if you hit F4, it will always be B10. And so if you keep going down and out, if you hit F4 again, watch what happens. When I go, actually I'm going to hit show formulas so you can see this in action. If I go over here, it's now C10. So it updated as we would expect. I went one column over, it changed the column. But what do you think will happen if I take this same equation and I bring it down here? The 10 does not change. But this cell does change. Why did that happen? Anyone? Why did that happen?
Because you changed cells. Those A12.
Yeah, but why is it still B10? I changed cells. Shouldn't it be B11?
Because it's still B. There's still that column B.
But why is it not 10 and not 11?
Because it's connected.
Yeah, I pressed F4, but I pressed it twice. So there's no $2 signs here. If you wondered why are there $2 signs, it's because one of those dollar signs locks the column, the letter part, and the other dollar sign locks the row. So when I shifted this over one, the column changed, but when I shifted it down one, the row did not change because the rows were locked, the column was not. Similarly, if I hit F4 again, now the column is locked, the row isn't. And when you hit F4 final time, it undoes everything. So this is sort of useful in this scenario because I can lock the column up here as a reference, and then I can go down and not be referencing something else up here, and I could go to the right, but it'd be updated. So it's a nice little thing about these references. Go right there. I can double that. I can go over here too. Okay, and every time, obviously I didn't update these, so I didn't do that to that, so that's making a mess of things. Okay, let's come back after this. Yeah, you know what it is. I just wanted to show you how that cell referencing works. How do we figure out how much total sales tax we earn? Or we owe? What's the total sales tax? Yeah, equals sum, tab, highlight, enter. That's what you should have written.
What button are you pressing to get the formula?
Equals?
No, like to get the formulas to show up.
Oh, I'm sorry, control tilde. So if you press control tilde, tilde being the symbol that's next to 1, you can see the formulas. That's a really valuable thing to be able to do because I will sometimes ask you on an exam to show your work. I always ask you to show your work on exams. And if you can print out that material, and that can be showing your work. And I'll show you how to print them. I'll make sure we all know how to print. Is everyone good? Now, there is, of course, another way to figure out how much we owe in sales taxes without having to do this whole, like, by individual item. How else do we figure out how much we owe in sales tax? Oh, I'm sorry. With the sum?
Yeah.
So, what I did, selected it right down here in total, and I did equal. Because that's always the secret from Excel. You press the equal sign, and then you start typing what we want. We want the sum, right? We want the total. I start typing sum. I see that it's giving me sum right here. Thankfully, my first option. So I press tab. By pressing tab, it essentially selects this command and fills in the rest of it. So yeah, it's useful too if I want to select the rest of this. Oh no, maybe that's sum. Tab. With that open parenthesis, I then highlight D2 to D6. And then I can press enter. That's what. What was your name again? Anisha. Any other questions? Now, I would like to maybe figure out another way. Well, what's my total revenue? How would I figure out my total revenue? Well, the price does not include the sales tax.
Okay.
Price times quantity.
Price times quantity. And then for each item, right? And then summed it up. So I'm going to show you that and how to do that. in this way. I'm also going to show you a faster way than that. But let's start with this way. So in order to do that, that means I'm going to need a total revenue for each item, which means I'm going to need a new column. Ideally, I put the column between C and D. So how do I add a new column between C and D?
Right click. You can right click on the
Between B and C? C and D. You can't really right click between them. If you right click a column up at the top, the letter, and you select insert, it will add a new column to the left. It always has a new column to the left, so we'll put one in the middle. We'll call this revenue. And now we can just do the simple, this equals this times that. And if you really want to be fancy too, we can even change this. Reference, just that. That's the same thing. So, I'm doing this. So I now have, because this used to be B2 times C2, since I'm making a B2 C2 column, I'm making B2 C2 here. And then I'm just going to reference that, because it's the same thing. There we go. Update everything. You don't need to change column E if you don't want to. I'm just doing it because I don't like seeing that kind of redundancy. If I can avoid it, it makes me feel better if I can sort of just map it. Cut down as many things as I can. So this is how much. So this is kind of nice. This is how much revenue we get from every item. We get a lot of money from cheeseburgers. People love cheeseburgers. They're happily paying that $1 more. People really like fries too. So what's our total revenue? We could do some, or we could remember we did some right here, and we can copy and paste it over. That's the secret to using Excel. It's really the secret to using a lot of things, but especially Excel. Now, because everything's formula, so much of it's formulas. Whenever you can copy and paste stuff, do so. So, $519.35. Note, we can take this number and multiply it by our tax rate of 6.5%. Let's get rid of all this junk. That times our tax rate, which is H1. And we get exactly the same result. So, that's nice verification we did everything correctly. You can get the same result in 2 different ways. Any questions so far? Let me know. Sometimes I go too quickly on Excel because I get excited. So let me know if I'm going too quickly. I did D8, which was this right here, what we just did, times H1, which is now the reference for the tax rate, because we had a new column, so it shifts everything over. It used to be G1. Any other questions? The thing is, that was kind of an annoying way to do it. Because we had to make a whole new column. That's annoying to make a whole new column if you don't have to. I don't want to do that. There's another thing you can do that's even faster if you want to figure out the total revenue and you have this information. What you are doing is you are taking this item and multiplied by this one, and this one multiplied by that one, etc., and then summing all those products. You are summing products. Product not being something you sell, product in the mathematical term, the result of multiplication. So there is a command for that. Does anyone know what it's called? Some product. There it is. Note, this is asking you for arrays. So we're going to put in 2 arrays. There are a lot of functions on Excel which require multiple pieces of information. So when you put those pieces of information in, you separate them with a comma. And you see there's a comma right here after array. So we will highlight B1 to B6, comma, C1. I'm sorry, that's C2. It should be B2 to B6, comma, C2 to C6. And then if you press enter, you get exactly the same result. I'm going to expand some product. See the whole thing. Some product notices you have a column here, and notices you have a column here. And it takes the product, it multiplies the first item in each of these columns, and holds on to that product. And the second column, it holds on to that product. The row, I mean, the next row, holds on to that product, and then combines 2 more columns, holds on to that. It has a whole long list of these products, and then sums them all up together. So that's a lot faster. What's nice about it is it's faster. It doesn't need us to make a new column. What's not nice about it is we don't get to see the meat of what's going on. Like here, we get to see that what brings in the most revenue by a fair amount are our cheeseburgers. Right? We don't see that when we break it down this way. When we don't break it down. Any other questions? Some product B2 colon B6, comma C2 colon C6. Honestly, it's easier if you just hit some product tab, highlight one of the areas you need, press the comma button, highlight the other area you need.
Do you teach the class?
No. I don't know if I'm technically qualified to teach it because it's a different department.
It's like very easier than
I don't know how they do it. They might have to cover more material. I'm just trying to get you familiar with Excel because we get to do the really fun stuff later. Any other questions? Okay. So, what else do I want to do? Oh yeah. Let's imagine then that we have this material and let's shrink that quantity. I'm going to double print that. Nice and tight. Maybe I want to print this and I want to show someone my work. But I don't want to include tax rate, and I don't want to include the stuff I have here. But I don't want to delete it because I might need it for later. I just don't want to show anyone it. I want to be able to print it, not include it. How do I do that? How do I print something? Exclude certain parts, but exclude certain parts without deleting it.
Save it first.
Save it first. Okay, it's fine. I can save it, delete the stuff, print, and then
highlight it and print it.
Highlight the area that I want. Z is right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Now, there's 2 things you can do. What are you thinking? So how do you want to do this? Excellent. You need a Control P, and then under print active sheets, if you select print selection, you see it got rid of that extra stuff there. That's pretty neat. Now, you can do that, and that's a fine way to do it. The problem is then you have to remember to highlight the area that you want to do every time. And so if you want to do multiple versions of this, that gets annoying. Or if you want to save it, and then you close it and you come back to it, then you have to remember that you have to do that over again. So this is a fine way to do it, if a quick and dirty way to do it. Another way to do it, though, that makes it part of the program, and then go back to print active sheets, and then we get out of this, is if you go to page layout, you see there is a print area button. And if you select that, and then from the drop down, select set print area and save it, that makes it part of the file. That tells itself that whenever I want to print something, I want to print this box that I'll highlight it. And indeed, when we hit Control Print, even though I have print active sheet selected, only this area is going to be printed. Control P for printing. Yep. Please make use of this, because when you take an exam in this class, I might give you a lot of data that literally goes on for pages and pages and pages. And I'll ask you to, I don't know, something like maybe find the average of that data, and I want to show your work. And some people smartly and rightly print out their results. You know, they do a show formulas so that you can see it, and indeed that's what we can do here too. If you want to show how people did what we did, we can do, Control tilde, and then print. And now look, now we can actually see, there's a sum product there, and so forth. Oh, that's nice to be able to do. The problem is that they will not select only the part that matters for the question. They will just hit Control Print, and then print out the whole data set. It's like pages and pages of crap I don't need. I just need the little bit of information that you use to show your work. So please make use of this and print, print selection if you have to. If you want, it's always great if you can print all to one page. So maybe you can shrink some of this stuff too. It's by double clicking like I showed you. Okay, that one doesn't shrink very much because it's so far. Yeah, like that. There we go. And then Control P. Now look, it's all on one page. I can see everything, and it saves a lot of space. Please don't print out the whole data set. Please don't do that. Don't be that person. Don't be that person. It's also great too because other people are trying to print their stuff, but meanwhile the printer is like churning out like 18 pages of like state data about like crime, and I'm like, don't be that person, right? Other people want to do their stuff. Any questions? Is the internet working yet?
Yes.
Yes, great. So let's pop over to my website, and you will see it will download data set 0. So since wouldn't necessarily see the sequence I went through, theyumber.com. And I went to teaching. And under teaching, we go to BS 8210, Tuesday, Thursday. And then I select data set 0. Now, you will see at the very top, it'll ask you to enable editing. Please do that now, immediately. Don't close the window yet. Sometimes people close Chrome, or trying to close Chrome, and then I try to enable editing. Sometimes it didn't work. Sometimes, for some reason, in a class I've had before, someone would close Chrome or close the web browser and then try to enable editing and wouldn't let them. And they had to go back to Chrome. It was really awkward and weird. So just first thing you do, enable editing. So you should click on BS8210 right there. These are those things. And then data set 0 on the right. Down. And what this is data based on major. This is majors per 10,000 graduates in the United States. I think it's a recent year too. So a good hint too, whenever you see something, I always try to include the description stat. So 15 minutes, so you can see where it's telling me or shows me where I got the information from. We have groups. So each major belongs to major groups. What are 15 big groups that they belong to? The English name of the major. Not all majors are included. This is only people, this is number of graduates aged 25 to 59 who majored in that subject. Percent of all graduates who majored in that. As annual salary of educated workers who only have a bachelor's degree. And we have the same thing too for a bachelor's degree, but only for Maryland. You'll also note that we have data 25%, it's organized by 25%, 50%, and 75%. Anyone know what that means?
So like the so you're saying 50% is the median, 25% is the people who make the average, the low 25%.
Yeah, so 25% of the population made 47,000 or lower, or less than 47,000. This is a cutoff point between the bottom 25% and the rest of the top 75%. If you want to think about it, if you know quartiles, this is the first quartile, and this is the third quartile, 75%. This is Maryland. This is national. What do you immediately notice about the difference between Maryland and national? It's higher in Maryland. Why is that?
High cost of living.
High cost of living. Excellent. I can remember your name.
Ike.
Ike.
Yeah.
You know, it was one of those things. As soon as I was like, oh my goodness, I think of course you said it first. Ike is absolutely right. It's high cost of living is going to throw this off. I don't know what these numbers are adjusted for cost of living. They might actually be lower when you adjust for cost of living. But not to gather that data, I'm not sure that data off the top of my head. So I may be curious, what percent of majors are business majors, business management majors specifically, and what percent of majors are chemistry? How would I figure that out? Notice I have that column here, but it's blank. How would I figure that out?
So you divide the number by 10,000.
Excellent. How would I do that? So I just do equals 4 to the 6 divided by 10,000. I do it that way?
No, so like C3.
Yeah.
Yes. Drag it.
Exactly. Right. Whenever you can make a cell reference, make a cell reference. You want to, yeah?
Is that 1,000?
We want to do 10,000 because it's per 10,000 people. 10,000 graduates. So I'm going to drag this down. I'm going to drag it down. You can drag it down. I got to go all the way down there. Or double click. Boom. All of them. Super fast. But there's a problem with this. What's the problem with it? Yeah, it would be nice if we could have it in percent, right, Michael? How do we do that?
You can click go to the percent line.
And what's nice too is we already have this whole section selected. Because we double clicked it.
You can shift forward.
I was just going to hit the percent sign. I mean, I guess you can do, yeah, Control Shift 4 if you want to be really fancy. Wait, that was currency. What are you having me do? Percent. Control. Oh, I hit Control Shift 4. We'll say Control Shift 5.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But this is kind of bad too, right? Are we saying that all of these are exactly the same for chemistry, civil engineering, and commercial art? It's all 1%. Yeah, let's pick out some decimal point. How many places do you want to add? 2. Why 2?
Because all the numbers that start with 4 only have 3.
Exactly. So we won't need any more than 2. There we go. This is a little bit more intuitive. Rather than saying 463 out of 10,000, we can say it's about 4.5% of all majors are business majors, or accounting majors, I should say, accounting. What if you want to know what's the most popular major? Well, what's the top 10 most popular majors? How would you figure that out? So there is a max function in Excel, but it will tell you the largest number in an array. So if you put in, if you do max and then highlight all of D, it'll say 8, but you won't know what major that refers to. 8 point something. Anyone know how to do this? This is like one of the most fun parts when Excel. It's one of the most useful things. So press this right here. This triangle will highlight the whole sheet, everything in it. And you want to highlight everything. You want to make sure you include everything. And then if you go to data, you see a sort function. Press that sort function. You should get a window that pops up. Before you do anything else, hit this checkbox right here. That indicates that you are telling Excel my data has headers. Excel will then look at whatever constitutes the first row and claim that's a header. In this case, it'll constitute the first 2 rows are headers because I expanded group to include 2 rows. I merged these 2 cells right here. So it thinks that both of these, I had to do that because it's had to break it down by state and then by these other levels here. So by selecting my data has headers, it renames the sort by into the names that you have. Right? Oh, do you want to sort this by major? You can tell I originally sorted by major, right? You can see it's alphabetical by major. No. I want to sort it by what? Percent of all graduates. Now, it'll ask you, do you want to do smallest to largest? You want to do smallest to largest? Let's do largest to small, because then the top 10 will be right there for us. And we hit OK. And boom. These are our top 10. Top 10 majors are business management, general business, accounting, nursing, psychology, communications, marketing, and marketing. What does it say? Marketing research, thank you. General education, elementary education, and English language and literature. English language and literature is one of the top 10 majors. Wow. I would not anticipate that. Sadly, computer science is just right there, number 11. Resist the temptation, by the way, to look at the row numbers and think that's the number. Like, we're not saying English language is number 12. I'm saying it's number 10 because our first 2 rows are taken up by titles. So don't do that. Oh, I can do that. Don't do that. There's economics, number 16. Any questions? Yeah.
What if you wanted to look at the highest paying?
I'm so glad that's a great question. I'm so glad you asked that. So let's do that. Let's select everything. Do a sort. And we can do that here. It's a little weird though, because it's calling these things, by the top, based on what they say here. So it notices that they're technically, it doesn't see. Let me actually try this out. Like, do you want to do it by national or by state? Do you want to do just Maryland?
Yeah.
Let's just do just Maryland. Yeah, that makes sense. And let's do median. So we'll do 50. But note, there's technically no name for column I. Right? Because column H, I, and J for the first row have state. But so Excel isn't smart enough to know if that's the case. It should look at its next row and call that 50. It's not smart enough to know that. So we're just going to have to print column I. Largest to smallest. And it's a lot of engineering classes. Yeah, it's a lot of engineering. Engineering typically ranks really high. Electrical engineering, chemical, mechanical, civil, computer science, general engineering, it's a lot of computer engineering stuff. I do want to also point out, though, that what I majored in and when I got my PhD in economics, it's right here. It's not super low, but it's not too shabby either. 75. It's not bad at all. Didn't like the top 20.
You should have gone for it.
Yeah. Economics is fun. Economics is a great combination of both fun and viable as post education. Any other questions? It's really useful to be able to sort the data. It's really fun. Okay. So with that in mind, let me just close this little section here. What I have in my notes, and I mentioned this sort of in passing, but there'll be more of these as we go forward. Our hotkeys, Control Z, Control X, Control Z, Control V. So as we talked about, here's the show formulas, hotkey. And also, too, sometimes it's helpful to be able to highlight without using the mouse, to just use so you can use the shift and then move the arrow keys around so you can highlight certain things you only want to. Because sometimes mice are weird, or sometimes you're just not highlighting the way you want to. And then, of course, there's the F4 button. This is the list of some of the commands that we've come across. This list will grow as the semester moves forward, as we keep adding things. And you'll see, like, if you pull up a practice exam, you'll see the very last page of the practice exam has that sort of material, has, like, a list of those summary information, all the kind of stuff we see. Okay. All right, we have about 20 minutes left. Lots more. I'm going to jump ahead, and I'm going to go on to what we're doing for Tuesday. I'm going to preview what we're doing for Tuesday. Yeah. So, Christianese. What did we talk about on Tuesday? Sorry, what was it? Last Tuesday. So last night. Well, last night I slept poorly too much. So anyone want to remind me what we talked about last Tuesday? Different types of data. But we also got a definition of statistics. What was our definition of statistics? Analyze sample data. So, what does that mean? Sample. There was a sample. We should get that definition down. In order to get that definition down, to define sample, we must first define population. What is a population? Anyone want to guess?
or in for how many like subjects are in a whole, or we use instead of data.
Well, that sounds like kind of a. I see. So how many of them could have been in the sample? Right. That's good, right? That's much better. That's it's sort of like the broader idea. We want to go even farther than that. So we care ultimately, when we do statistics, we care ultimately about the population. We're trying to describe the population. And we certainly care about all things that we didn't include in the sample. But that also includes, sometimes it includes things that don't exist. If you are testing to see if some new cancer drug works, you want to know that it works not only for the people that currently have cancer, but for the people who could have cancer in the future. So we don't want to confine it to all the things we could have chosen because we can't choose people who don't have cancer yet. So we're going to expand that. We're going to make it even broader than that. We're going to say all possible subjects of interest. A parameter characteristic about a population. Talk about parameters, we're always talking about the population. Works out well, they both begin with P. So now that we have a good idea what we talk about when we talk about population, we can now define a sample. So we want to take a guess what a sample is.
Raw data?
Okay. What do you mean?
I mean, I just think
So it is sort of like it is kind of raw data, but we can get a bit more precise this time. Sort of expand on that.
It's just like a part of the population, or like the data.
It's a subset of the population, I'd say. Better, more than that, the representative subset. Technically, you could argue that a sample doesn't have to be representative, but as we will discuss, samples that are not representative are bad samples. Biased samples, you could say at some point. Parameter is a characteristic about a population. What do you suppose a characteristic about a sample is called? It's a statistic. Any questions so far? Before we get too much in the nitty-gritty of sampling, we should answer the question, why should we ever sample everything anyway? What's the advantage of, say, checking a subset of the population of MC students rather than just asking all MC students something?
Because they're taking a lot of time.
Sampling, exactly. Sampling is faster. And because it's faster too, it's cheaper. So these are kind of the same thing. Time is money. And because it's faster and cheaper, the details matter. So let's imagine I wanted to get a bunch of information about a particular student's opinion on a large variety of topics, like how they feel about the website for Montgomery College, how they feel about how their planning system is going, tutoring options we have available, class selection. I want to get a bunch of information. Is it practical for me to interview literally everyone? No. But if I want to get a bunch of information, is that reasonable if I'm going to ask a small set of people? So one of the additional advantages that sampling unlocks is because it's faster and cheaper, it allows for greater depth of questioning. Depth. Each observation. I was looking at data about it was a project on the voter study group, and they'd asked Trump voters a bunch of different questions, like pages and pages of questions. Their opinion on immigrants, their opinion on Social Security, I think was on that list, on who they voted for in the last election before that, on if the election was Bernie Sanders was running instead of Hillary Clinton, how would they vote? All these different questions. I was like, oh my God, who are these people that just answered all these questions? There's a lot of questions there. But of course, it wasn't a super huge sample. It wasn't like 10 million people, so it's reasonable that they can find enough people to answer all those questions. Of course, there's always a problem. The kind of people who want to answer all those questions are different than the kind of people who are not. That can mess up your sample a bit. And that's something we'll talk about next class in more detail. Another advantage that's kind of related to these, but technically different and worth noting. If you buy a car, is it a safe car? Like, if it gets in a crash, is it going to be safe? Are you going to be okay? I mean, obviously, it can be really bad that it's not, but. Yeah. How do they know?
They tested
Ratings.
Ratings, right? And they get those ratings because they tested it. Right? They tested the car. Whenever they make a new car design, they have to, actually by law, do crash tests on it. Do they sample when they do those crash tests? Yes. How do you know? There would be no cars. There would be no cars to sell. Imagine if they didn't sample. We got to check the whole population. So as soon as our car comes off the line, it's like they put a brake on the accelerator and then they ram it into a vehicle. It turns out that one was safe. We could have sold that one, boys. Well, maybe the next one will be fine. They pulled the next one. No, obviously you have to sample. And if you didn't sample, you wouldn't have anything to sell. So another advantage of sampling is that it's practical. Allows one to gather data. On things they normally couldn't gather data on. to make a good sample, then two things have to be in play. One, the sample has to be precise. Two, the sample has to be accurate. So let's see what each of these mean. I don't like that. I don't like that. Okay, let's capitalize that. Just to make it clear, these are important. Let's imagine I wanted to gather data on Montgomery College students, and I wanted to get some idea on how they feel about Montgomery College. So I find 3 people at random, and I ask them how they feel about Montgomery College. Is that a good sample?
No.
But why not?
You could have just 3 guys.
Well, I selected them at random. So okay, so that's going to be a problem with accuracy, and you're absolutely right. So I could have had some sort of a bias built in because maybe the people who come during the day are different than people who come during the night. Okay. But I like what you were saying earlier. You want to expand on that?
Oh, like there wasn't a lot of variety in the choosing.
Are you saying that I only selected men or women?
Maybe.
Because I'm a sexist?
Bias or something.
Or even if I wasn't biased, even if it was truly random, is it possible I selected only men or women? It's possible, right? You select things at random, you flip a coin 3 times, it's possible it comes out head 3 times in a row. Doesn't mean that it's a bad coin. It just means there's random events that happen. Right? If you are randomly selecting people, you can, by chance, get something unusual. So a sample is precise in that way that it's representative. It minimizes the amount of error from the population due to random fluctuation. Random fluctuation always happens. If you are selecting randomly from the population, then you are always going to get that chance that maybe you selected some weird result through that chance. Thus, samples are never perfectly precise. There was always sample error. Sample error. Sampling error is always unavoidable. There's always that chance you selected someone weird in some weird circumstance, and your sample is actually not replicated. Ideally it is, but there's always the chance that it's not. What this really translates into is that the sample has a reasonable number of observations. The number 30 is the threshold. 30 is a good number to have. Don't hang your hat on that too much. Don't obsess over the number 30 too much. A lot of statisticians do. I'm always a little confused by that because 30 is there's kind of an arbitrariness to why 30, why not 20, why not 25, why not 36. N equals 30. The little tilde, N equals about 30. So I'm sort of reminding us that there's One thing that certainly matters is how much variance occurs within your population. If you're looking at very different people, then you're going to need a certain larger sample in order to capture that kind of differences. So there's a lot of variety in Montgomery College. If we're going to get a varied sample, we're going to need a pretty big sample in order to be able to capture that variety. Hell, how many majors do we have in Montgomery College? More than 30, certainly. So if we want to capture that variety, and also the proportion that variety exists, right? There are more business majors than art majors, so we'll have to have more in the population. We're going to probably need more than 30 people. But if you are only interested in maybe gender differences, then maybe 20 could pull it off fine. Because you can easily get, you know, maybe 10 women, 10 men, or maybe 11 and 9. All right, that's pretty good. Capturing a lot of the variety. A lot of the variety. Again, remember your goal, your sample needs to be represented. Ideally, any questions on this, by the way? In order to be representative, ideally, every element in the population has an equal chance of being in the sample. And we call that simple random sample. That SRAS, that simple random sample, is considered the gold standard of sampling. You can set up a situation where every element you could choose has an equal chance of being part of the population. Of being part of the sample, I mean. Then you have a really great sample. You have an accurate sample. In practice, that turns out to be really hard to do. And even if your sample is large, 300, 400, 500, it's possible it's not accurate. And this is by far a bigger problem. Seeing that the sample is big enough is usually an easy thing. It's usually fine. It's easy enough to detect. The sample is really small. That's a problem. Checking to see if it's accurate is hard. It can be sneaky about that. When we say accurate, we mean it doesn't underestimate or overestimate. A parameter that it's trying to estimate. It represents the sample. It represents the population. So the statistic is neither too high, neither too low than what it should be. If it isn't accurate, we say that it has systematic bias, or systematic error, I mean, systematic error. In other words, it is a biased sample. You ever heard the phrase biased sample? The sample is biased. That's what it was referenced to. The sample is inaccurate. There is something wrong with how that sample was constructed. It does not represent the population. If, for example, I decided to do random sampling, I want to see what are people at Montgomery College like. And I sample everyone in this room, that would be a biased sample. Why would it be a biased sample? Well, I mean, just because it's convenient for me doesn't mean it's biased. There has to be something wrong with the sample.
Not everybody has a chance to be in the sample.
Not everyone has a chance to be in the sample, and then, but everyone does. Or anyone can sign up for the course. But can you think of a reason for why the people in this room are not representative of everyone at Montgomery College?
Because not everyone's a
Not everyone's a business major, right? So we saw the data, right? Like roughly, what is it, about maybe 20% of people are majoring in some kind of business, right? How many people here are majoring in business? Raise your hand. Oh, so they may be closer to 80%. Right? So clearly, this is not representative. So you're right. Like not everyone has a chance to sign up, but only because not everyone would sign up for this course. Only certain people do, and those people are not going to be representative of the whole population. Now, granted, if I'm trying to measure height, that could be fine. Why would business majors be taller or shorter than the population? Right? I don't think that matters. But if I'm measuring something like IQ, obviously business majors are smarter. So that's going to bias things. All right. So with that in mind, I'm going to let everyone go, and we will reconvene on Tuesday. Thank you. Have a great weekend, everyone.